Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson. Thank you for being part of this program. This is episode 184. 184 episodes of Solutions with Courtney Anderson that we have now undertaken. This show is part of the series Courtney, I am curious. This is a series based on exactly what it sounds like. You ask me interesting questions, and so if it's something specific to me individually and anything that I've shared or experienced or that might be helpful to you, I'm more than happy to do what I can to try to answer it to the best of my ability. So this is a series where you ask and I answer. This specific show is Courtney, I am curious, how did you buy your first home at age 27 as a single woman? So, I do often encourage you to come by CourtneyAnderson.com. That's our central website. It's where we have this show. There's an individual page on the website just for this show. So it'll have notes and links to anything that I reference during the program. It'll also have an opportunity, obviously, for you to think a little bit more about what we're discussing. I would ask you to tell me what's on your mind. Send me your feedback, suggestions, ideas, show topics. Please share our show on social media. If there's something here that you think might be useful or helpful, get the word out. I also ask that you leave a rating or review on distribution channels and networks like iTunes or Stitcher or anywhere else that you find our show around the world. And while you're on CourtneyAnderson.com, you will see different advertising and affiliate links to different sponsors. Please look at those. If there's anything that you see that might be a service or a good that you think, yeah, I want that, click on that link and make that purchase. We are growing this program and then all the other things that we do. We have a companion to this show, which is the video version of it, the television version of this program. We've got upcoming webinars and courses, and so we're doing everything that we can to provide new content constantly. And part of that, of course, is to provide it, but provide it, of course, to everyone, open access around the world, no charge. And we have to build out an infrastructure to support that. So, the question, how did you buy your first home at age 27 as a single woman? I have addressed the fact in many different settings and opportunities that I've been a believer, and I'm still a believer, that we want to do everything we can to achieve our financial independence. Financial independence, of course, is that period of existence where we have enough diversified income streams and revenue streams that we aren't anxious or worried or frightened or scared. What if I lose my job, or what if this happens to my funding for this or that? It wouldn't make us happy to have an opportunity end or to lose an opportunity that we enjoy, but it's not going to change our lifestyle in terms of where we live and the type of opportunities that we have, because we have different again, decisions that we've made. We own different types of assets and different types of investments, and so we've got this diversified income stream that even if something happens really awful and yucky that we don't like, it's not going to make or break us financially. We're financially independent. That's the idea, right? And part of that I have referred to in some programs, we have a whole series, Financial Fierceness. If you haven't visited Financial Fierceness, and Financial Fierceness is what it sounds like. We are fierce, we are assertive, we are confident, and we're going to get out there and create the outcomes, right? We're going to set those goals and surpass those goals so that we get to a point where, we are in charge of our personal finances and or our business finances, and stability, viability. Those are all the things that we're able to achieve. And of course, we have an incredibly diminished level of stress in our lives because, it's either paid for. We're not really concerned about if something again happens to one income stream. We have other income streams, we have other assets, we have other resources. And we've talked about everything from how important it is that we maintain an understanding of credit and how credit works, because even though we may have resources, we also want to do what we can to maximize that credit score as high as we possibly can, because that makes it easy in life for us to do stuff, right? I want to buy something. I might need to borrow something. There could be an emergency. Oh, I go to a lender. They look at my credit score. It's so high. What's the answer? Yes. Ooh, that's nice. So financial fierceness, we talk about many things, and I have talked about in financial fierceness. We've done programs about how to buy your first home and how to buy your next home. So if you're listening to this program and you haven't accessed those, I'll put links in the show notes, and please go ahead and do so. Right, go to financial fierceness and look up those programs, because that's where we talk generically, not me necessarily about everything about my experience, but a generic experience discussion of real estate, buying your own home and buying your next home. This is a specific, though, question to me, right? Like, how did I do the purchase of my first home when I was 27 years old and I was a single woman? So there's a lot that people are asking in this question. One, it's an age question. One of the things in the show notes, and of course on every opportunity on every show, we have a page on the central website that's just about that show. So of course this is episode 184, 184, and the first part of this question, I think, is buying a home at 27. So I mentioned in many of our programs that data is our friend. Credible data is even our best friend, because we only know what we know, what we've seen, touched, tasted, heard, experienced, and because of that, it skews our perception of things. We many of us tend to have a tendency that we sort of perceive ourselves to be average, even though we may be really below average, or we may be really above average. We don't really know until we get some sort of external understanding of sort of larger group data. So there's a link on the show page. We're talking about the situation of age, and I'm thinking, here's the thing. When I get this question and I'm thinking, is this a good show? The first thing I personally think is I'm embarrassed that I was so old when I bought my first home, because I had many opportunities, earlier in life, and it was a goal of mine from when I was a kid to have my own place. So the fact that it took me so long in life, that I was, 27 when I, yay, it's my house, here are the keys, I've just left the closing at the title company, I have my house. Why it took so long, I get off track. I've talked about this in other programs. And so when I see something like this, I'm the first thing I think is I'm frustrated with myself, because it really, honestly, why did it take that long? And it took that long because of my own, like I said, I've sabotaged myself at times. I've made bad decisions at times. I've gotten off track and away from my goals, and so it is what happened. I mean, the historical facts are the historical facts. So, but here's the thing again with data. So I'm mad at myself, thinking, yeah, you might as well ask, why did you buy your house at 127 years old? Because I get so, I get frustrated with myself. So data. I'm thinking, well, maybe, if 99% of people buy their first house at, 21, clearly I'm far below average. I'm a disaster. I'm a mess, right? No wonder I'm so mad at myself for being 27. So I went to go see, what's some data? What's going on? I've got a statistic on the show page, and it's giving us, allegedly, the average age of the first-time home buyer, right? So I'm stressed, thinking, why did you wait till 27 to buy your first home? Why did you do that? According to this data here, there's a link on the page, and it's from a university, actually from BYU, Brigham Young University, and it's talking about real estate, and it's talking about the average age of first-time home buyers, and it says the average age of a first-time home buyer is 34. According to the most recent American Housing Survey data collected in 2009. American Housing Survey data actually is from the federal government. It's part of the information that comes out of the U.S. Census Bureau. So if you really want to go pull up the whole survey, you certainly can. And 34. Okay, so if average is 34 and I'm 27, then now this is a different time frame. So I didn't buy my first house in 2009. I was in 27 to 2009. So this is not an exact data, right? It's not, but if it's anywhere near, then I don't know why. Then it doesn't make sense for me to be upset that I felt like I was too old. Is my point. Okay. So the other thing that you'll look and you will see, the smallest group of homeowners is that group that is under 35. So, okay, okay, that's helping me understand. It says I got a census, again, the United States and the US. The census is part of the federal government. It's an agency who is tasked with, I'm sure, many responsibilities. But one of them, of course, that we in the sort of public think about is they count stuff. They count people. They count places. How many businesses, how many houses, how many of them are vacant, how many of them are owned. They count stuff and they give you data. How much money do people make? How many kids do people have? How many people live in this city? How many people live in this place? So they're counting, and then they're giving us, what they claim are with, accurate numbers. Now, I'm not going to get in debate about that, but we're going to use them for the purposes of our programs. And then, of course, I always encourage you to go out and do your own research. It may be that you find that the figures that we look at from a source are you believe credible, and it might be that you go and do your own research and think, my goodness, look what I've uncovered. These are not credible facts at all. So, but it's a starting point for our discussion. So it says here in the show notes okay, so this is talking about 2014, right? Because I just gave you a number, average age 34 years old, first time home buyer. That was from 2009. From 2014, for the second quarter of 2014, it says the homeowner rates were highest for those householders age 65 years and over. 80.1% of people age 65 years and older are homeowners. Okay, wow, it's really high. And then the lowest is for the under 35 years of age group. Only 35.9% of people under 35 years of age own their own home. So again, that's giving me another one of these potential data points to help me think, well, okay, then maybe I wasn't, a catastrophic disaster by not getting my first home till 27, right? According to this sort of larger analysis of what people do. I'm still going to always have my own frustrations, that I didn't buy the house that I could have when I was 24 or whatever. But I definitely now have a better understanding and of what people do, right? And so sometimes, like I said, in this series, the Courtney I'm Curious series, sometimes it's hard when I get the questions because I'll think, well, that's average. Or I'll usually think most of the time, it's below average because often I'm frustrated with my inability to do my best. I think sometimes I'll think, I could have done better, right? The challenge, of course, is we all could have done better. So all those are to say that if you're young, and young is relative, but definitely if you're over 65, I can safely say that I do believe that the majority of the data shows that if you're over 65, the majority of people in your age group, they really do. They are homeowners. If you are under 35, they're not. So the younger you are, buying your own home is a little bit more unusual. Now we're talking about buying, so we're not talking about somebody who, is, hey, I'm 19 or 17. Well, not 17 because you wouldn't be able to, you're not legally old enough to enter into the contract, but you're 18. And you say, well, my great uncle left me, his house, and now I'm a homeowner. Yes, you are. You are a homeowner. That's awesome. Yet you didn't buy it. You inherited it, which doesn't mean it's not equally awesome. It doesn't diminish the value of it at all. But what it does is it's a different process to go out yourself and procure something versus to have someone just sort of give you something. Now you're still going to have the same responsibilities as a homeowner, right? Maintenance and all of that, but it's going to be a very different extra set of steps if you're the one that went out and bought it. And if you bought it on your own, meaning that nobody gave you the money or nobody else went and did the work for you to find the funds, to find the property, to enter into contract or purchase, to negotiate that contract, to go to closing, that there's a lot of steps in there that you had extra versus someone who just was given something, and then you kind of will equal up, and then you'll have the different responsibilities in terms of maintenance. So buying a house, like I said, we talked about that in some of the other financial fierceness shows, is a lot more work than someone giving you one. Just like, well, that's like anything, right? Making a meal, cooking a meal, preparing a meal is a lot more work than just sitting down and someone else did it and you just eat it. It's different. So if you're younger, it's more unusual. And like I said, the main reason that I wanted to buy a house, and that I still believe that Many of us in our community want to have our own houses. It's about security. It's about the psychological. It's not even. I'm not even touching the financial argument. Uh, and this is something that is not, it's only, my individual sort of, Courtney opinion. The idea of home ownership being something that represents, at least psychologically, the idea of stability is something that's quoted on the show notes. There's a CNN link, and there's some quoted material here, right? Okay, so we're asking again, first, we're talking about there's several layers of this. Age. So the younger you are, then the smaller your peer group of your same age that has, that buys their own home. We're talking about, I'm always reminding us that we want to remember data is our friend, because data usually help us feel better, right? Because we'll realize, oh, okay, that's a more realistic understanding, and maybe we're being unrealistic with our expectations on ourselves. The other thing is, I shared that one of my main goals, and the reason why I said since I was a young kid I wanted my own place, part of it is just that thing when you're growing up, right? And if you grow up and you're, you're obviously not just by yourself. You need to be around some kind of adult, and it could be a relative, a family member, a parent. It could be, a foster parent. It doesn't matter, but there's some adult somewhere, because you're not supposed to be alone when you're, whatever, an infant or a child. So at some point, and I mentioned this in the shows about home buying, you get that you often will get in some sort of discussion where basically you want to do something, or you have done something, and then you're basically told, hey, it's my house. When you're in your own house, you make your own rules. But you're in my house, when you're in my house, you're going to follow my rules. And normally the rules, when you look back, are normal rules. Whatever, make your bed, or, do your chores or whatever. But at the time, it still is sort of like, that's a good point, and they're right. And then when you get to the point where you're old enough to enter into legal contracts, which we talk about in our Law Lovers Lounge about how that works, when you're able, there's sort of a fantasy part that I said I held on to, where I thought, well, you know what, when it's my own place that I own, not just that I'm, renting, but it's mine, I really can do what I want. I can put my toys where I want. I can, go to bed when I want. I can, pick up what I want, or make it, cluttered. I can paint it whatever I want. It's mine. So that's part of it. Sort of that childish, I want my own stuff. And then I can be in charge. The other part is that the concept of some sort of stability, because if it's yours, and again, this is very childish, but if it's yours and it's yours, then at some point it's more stable than it's somebody else's, and then they can make a decision, and then you're going to have to be at the mercy of what they want, right? So here's a quote there from CNN from the show notes. It says the National Association of Realtors reports that since the mid-1990s, single women have purchased homes at nearly twice the rate of single men. And it says, this is a 2013 article, so it says last year, single female homeowners made up 18% of household composition in the association's profile of home buyers and sellers, compared to 10% for single men. So it's saying that, so we're talking about age, right? Under 35, and we talked about some data. Now we're talking gender, because that was also part of the question. And that's me, female. So it's saying that you look in the data, right? And it shows you that 18% of homeowners are single women, and only 10% are single men. Now that's interesting. That's something really interesting. Actually, before I started doing all the research for this show, obviously I didn't know all these specific data points. And then it says solo home ownership carries a sense of pride. And so this article is interviewing a female who's a homeowner on her own, right? Because that's what the article is about. And so she says, I'm able to have a place that would be truly my own, that I could decorate the way I wanted to. And then she says, and have some sort of stability. Okay, so it's not individually just Courtney, but it's, other people. I don't obviously know the person that's interviewed in this article. So I'm not the only person in the universe who thought this. Part of it is that, I didn't mention, well, I did a little bit, right? The decoration. I can paint it, I can decorate it, I can do what I want, I can put the toy where I want, or the chair, whatever. It's my house. And then the other part of it is some sort of stability. Now that, it may bear out that there's no stability in it, but there's the perception. The perception, it's mine. And now, of course, it's going to, for real property, there's a whole bunch of things that are sort of asterisks to mine, right? Because in the States and in many parts of the world, it might be yours, but you have to pay tax on the land. So you have to share, and by owning the property, the land, and then whatever improvements or fixtures like the buildings or the houses or whatever that are on there, in many parts of the world and in the U.S., you're going to have to pay tax. You're going to have to share by paying tax based on the fact that you own this thing. And so if you don't pay your tax, worst case scenario in many parts of the world and in the States, then it won't be yours anymore because you violated that agreement. The agreement was you're going to pay the tax for owning the thing, and if you don't do it for long enough amounts of time, then the government can come and penalize you and sort of force you to do it. And if you still don't do it, in some instances they can take the property. I also have to mention this because it's a huge legal issue, and if I don't, I know people will freak out. Eminent domain. Eminent domain is basically this concept where even if you do pay the tax, there are times, and this is a very emotional issue. I have to say it's odd because you think, who cares about land? Like, it's an emotional, but this actually really is. Eminent domain is this concept where, in supposedly rare circumstances, that the collective, the society, can have a need that exceeds your individual desire and need to keep your property that you own, and they can take your property under this thing called eminent domain. The idea that, oh my goodness, it's going to do so much wonder for the whole, town. It'll all benefit. We really need to build this new, airport. You refuse to sell, your place, but your place is right in the middle of where we're building the airport, and we all have to do this, and everyone else has agreed to it, and it's going to be so awesome, and you still won't let us do this, and you still won't agree to it, and we've offered you, money, and you still say no. And so I'm very much oversimplifying this, okay? But in some instances, and they're again supposed to be very rare, then even though you paid your taxes, and you can have some kind of eminent domain action. So that does happen, and if I didn't mention it, then I'd be certainly remiss. So there's no guarantee, right? It could be that you taxes, it could be eminent domain. Yet, in theory, and in an application, in many instances, you have a little bit more control than you would if you rent something, because you have the extra layer if it's not yours at all. If you just pay rent, I'll trade you money for a certain amount of time. I'll stay here for a month, I'll stay here for a year or whatever. The challenge though is you don't own it, so there's all these, you're just using it for a certain amount of time under whatever parameters that your lease agreement is. And so the owner of the property has a lot more control and decision-making authority than you do, right? And they could tell you you're not going to be able to decorate it like that. And they could say to you, nope, you can't have a dog or a cat. Or they could say to you, it's not happening. It's, my house, my rules. And so even though nobody's guaranteed sort of a perfect vested property right, shall we say, I will argue, and I do believe the evidence shows in general, you have more autonomy and options by owning it than you do by not. And I think for some people, myself and the person in the article that was quoted, we sort of interpret that as some sort of potential stability. It's mine. So if I'm renting a place, I may love it, I may never want to move, but at some point the landlord, the owner may come to me and say, hey, look, I don't, I'm ending the lease. And I would say, well, no, I don't want you to end it. And they'd say, hey, the lease is up, in a month, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to sign another agreement. I don't, whatever. Maybe I'm going to move back in here. Maybe I'm going to sell it. Maybe I'm just going to leave it empty. Who knows? But I don't have to let you stay here, once we get beyond the terms of your agreement. And that's different than it's your place and there is no landlord. Right? So, and for some people, there's a perception that might lead to stability. So I'm just wanting to make it clear, I'm not the only one. All right, so we were talking about a couple of things, right? Buying a home, being younger, right? We talked about that if you're younger you're under 35, you're under 30, whatever, the younger you are, then there are just less numbers of people your same age that are homeowners. It makes sense. Because you either have to have the money to buy the house, or you have to have the credit and some money and then borrow the rest of it. But you got to come up with something, because if you don't have any money, either money that you have and you're just saying, hey, I'm buying this for my money that I have, here's my money, give me the house, or you say, hey, here's the price, I'm going to give some of my own money that I already have, and I'm going to borrow some other money and promise that lender that I'm going to pay that back, and then they're going to have an interest in this property until I pay them back, and at which point they'll release that, and then I'll have a title that's absent any type of mortgage. So but in either event, you have to either have the resources or be able to have some resources and borrow the resources, and or whatever. If you don't have any credit and you don't have any money and nobody's going to give it to you, then you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to buy a house because you don't have anything. I have some people are going to say, well, all right, are there some instances, there's some legal concepts called adverse possession. These are again very rare, and that's where you don't have any money, but basically you meet very narrow rules that you just sort of move somewhere. You can sort of think of it like somebody moves somewhere as like a squatter, like they just moved in. They don't have a lease, they're not paying anything, but they just stay there long enough, and they're doing it openly. And the rules are different in different parts of the world, but in general, this idea of adverse possession is I'm going to get possession of it, in this adverse way. Like I'm just going to go take it, and I'm just going to hold on to it long enough. Sometimes the durations are long, like 10 years or something. But whatever it is, adverse possession is a way where if you don't have any money and you meet all of those requirements under those jurisdictions, that's a possibility. I have to mention all this stuff because I don't mention it, and then people say, well, yeah, you're a lawyer and you're a professor and you didn't mention this. I can't mention everything in every show, obviously, because they're supposed to be between 30 minutes and an hour and a half. But I do, these things come up, right? And the thing is, I'll think, in my mind, yeah, you have to mention that, right? Because it's part of my sort of way I think about this issue. So in general, assuming that you're not doing adverse possession, you had to have, the ability to let somebody believe you're going to pay them back and borrow the money from them totally, like a lender. It could be a family member, but if it's a family member, you usually don't have to qualify. So if you're like, well, my grandmother said she'd give it to me. Well, yeah, but is your grandmother going to, do a credit check, and then if you have horrible credit, tell you she's not going to give it to you? She may do a credit check, but she may, based on being your grandmother, say to you, even though your credit's horrible or awesome, it doesn't really matter. You're my grandkid. I'm giving you the money because you're my grandkid. I'm not giving you the money based on like a business analysis of you as, a customer. So that's different. But if you're just going to a stranger, like an entity, and asking them, they're going to do it based on the fact that they're not your grandmother, but that what's your credit, what's your job, what are you doing, what's your intent? Are you going to live there? Is this an investment property? Like they're going to do it's a lot of questions they're going to ask because they're lending you their money. And yeah, they're securing it against the property, meaning if you don't pay them back, worst case scenario, they're going to try to, again, foreclose on that property, and then they'll have to take it. But the deal is they don't want the property because they have the money, right? Because they're going to lend it to you to buy that. That means they had the money to buy it themselves. So if they really just wanted to buy the house, they would have gone ahead and done that themselves. They don't need you. What they want to do, what they're in the business of, is making loans. They're not in the business of buying the property because when they make a loan, they're going to also charge interest. So whatever they're lending you $1, but you're not paying back $1. You're paying back $1 plus whatever the extra interest and whatever other revenue opportunities they may have been able to include. But that's why they're doing this. They want to make money on the loan. They don't want the house. And so when I have talked to people as a lawyer giving a speech about these types of things, people in distress, the deal is the bank doesn't want the house. If they did, they would have just bought it initially. They don't need you. What they want is a loan. They want you, somebody, as a lender, as the person that is their client, and they want you paying back the money plus whatever the interest is. That's where they're going to make their money, right? So here, all this is to say that if you think that a home represents stability, you're not alone. At least myself and at least one other person, and there are many others, your research will sort of show, perceive it that way because you have some more autonomy. If part of your perception is, yeah, then I can do with it what I want for decoration and, paint it whatever color I want, whatever, it's my house, you're right. I also must mention, yes, in some instances when you buy property, then you're going to, depending on what are called restrictive covenants. In other words, there are some times in communities where the community has determined rules for buying into their community development. So sometimes it's a building. Condominiums are one type of property where you buy from the walls in, you own, the space from the walls inside, and then you have shared. All the other parts of the building are shared by everybody has an interest. Sometimes there's single family where there's a home and then there's your own lot, like you own your own amount of space, but there's still shared amenities. And there may be a community homeowners association, HOA, which will have their own rules. And so many of the rules will tell you, hey, we've all agreed that we're going to paint things this color. If you want to paint yours, purple with, sparkles on it and little stars and everything, then that's not in our rules. And you have to ask them and tell them what you want to paint it. And then if they say no, you can appeal it. And if they, so I'm not, what I'm saying is you're thinking, well, that sounds like buying with your parents or living with your foster parents. Well, yeah. Like I said, there's no perfect one of these where, unless you get to the point where you have enough money to buy the whole entity. And you see that with really wealthy people, they'll buy like an island or something because then it's all theirs. And in some instances, if you buy the whole entity and it's, then in theory, you are the government and you also are the only property owner. So even if, there is some sort of, taxation structure or whatever, you set it because you own it all. So if you get that wealthy, then do that. And want that. All right, so I have to mention that HOA can and does come in many instances, and there's co-op, right? A co-op, a condominium cooperative unit where you'll have, but you bought into that. You bought into a deal that was already set up with all these collective ideas and covenants, and you know this because you signed paperwork. I know this. When you buy a house, you go to closing and you're going to sign a ton of paperwork. And if the paperwork tells you about all these rules, then you knew it before you moved there. So then you can't move there to that condominium or co-op or HOA community and then have a viable argument that, they're telling you, what colors you can do and all this because you knew this. You shouldn't have bought that place. You should have bought somewhere else where they didn't have any of those covenants and or restrictions. So I'm trying to address things, again, that pop up in my mind. The question is, how did I do it? How did I buy a house? Like anybody buys a house. I talked about this in all those financial fierceness shows. Credit, right? Because you're going to pay cash, which means you need to have the cash. So you need to earn it, at your business or your job, and then save it. Or again, if I'm not usually talking where someone else gave it to you, because to me that's a different type of situation. Because you don't have to do anything but exist and be that thing, right? Be that granddaughter or nephew or friend or whatever. Because then they're not giving it to you based on, your assessment of your credit risk or how likely you're to pay it back. They're just giving it to you based on the relationship. So if you're in that relationship and they give you the money, then you have it, and you weren't worried about, your credit score or them verifying your employment or any of that stuff. So to me, it's not the same type of transaction at that level. I'm talking to people who don't have any money. Like when I bought my first house, no, I don't have any money. Meaning I didn't have, I wasn't born into inheritance. I don't have any inherited trust fund or anything. I hadn't by that point put enough cash where I was just had hundreds of thousands of dollars cash sitting around somewhere to go out and buy and to spend over $100,000 on a house. I did, so I had money, I had some money, I had enough money to put what they call a down payment. So I paid part of what the house cost, but the rest of it I borrowed. And so to do that, I had to do all the things I talked about in those other shows and I'm mentioning already here. Credit score, credit report. They're going to look and see, have you paid other people that you borrowed money from? If you haven't, can you explain what happened? What caused you to get into trouble, or what happened? Did you co-sign something for somebody? Then they ran up a bill, and put you in a situation where you couldn't sign it, or talk to us. And so that's what you do. And we've done several shows on that, okay? And we'll do many more programs because it's really important you understand how credit works and things of that nature. The bottom line is you need to learn how credit works, credit scores and credit reports, and you need to do everything in your power to maximize your score. So as high as because the higher it is, higher means better, right? The higher it is means higher likelihood that you'll pay your money back, which makes it easy for them to say yes. In many instances, there are literally computer programs where people just take your data, right? And I did a whole multi-part show about credit reports and credit scores, explaining a lot of the details. And I did it not just only focusing on the U.S. I mentioned other global things, but basically the system is they're companies, private businesses that go out and create these reports and get data on you and and then they sell that back to businesses that want to find out about you and see if they might want to loan you money. And then often now there's just simply computer programs where they make sure that they've entered your data correctly and that you're the right person. That's a whole area fraught with problems, and people have inaccurate data and they ran the report and it wasn't even you, but assuming that they were addressing all of that and they get to the record and it really is you, they're going to look and see, what did you do when you borrowed money, any other time? Were you late? How late were you? When did it happen? Blah, blah, blah. So that's what they're going to do. When this benefits you, it benefits you marvelously, because basically what it does is it'll tell the computer they'll decide, the people who are programming this, humans somewhere sitting somewhere are do something, communicate. They don't have to be sitting, but they decide, here's going to be the score. And if the score is higher than this number or higher, that'll tell the computer to automatically approve it. And it really does work like that. It's almost like magic, but it's not magic. It's simply that was the criteria. And ideally, the computers are running it, right? So, if the number is your credit score needs to be 720 and your credit score is 720, then it'll tell you yes, you get the loan. If it's lower than that, then they're going to have different cutoff numbers where they're going to come back to you and say, well, we might be able to do this, what they'll call, in many instances in real estate, if you're borrowing money, they're going to call it, they'll say they're going to, what they mean, they're going to talk about something called underwriting. And I talked about this in the other programs, where underwriting is what it sounds like. They're going to go and decide if they're going to underwrite, if they're going to be the ones that are giving you the money, right? They're loaning it to you. And if your scores are high enough, it'll automatically approve you. If it isn't, then often they'll do what they call manual underwriting, and that means exactly what it sounds like. It means a human is going to interact with you and ask you a whole ton of questions. What they're going to try to do is see if your number's lower than it's supposed to be, but it's not so low that they automatically, there's no way. There's a range, right? There's a number where if it's that number or below, forget about it. It's not happening. No one's even going to talk to you, asking you questions. They're not going to try to fix something and see if they can do anything to solve this, to save the deal. Like, you're done. It's over. You're not getting the loan. There's a number where if your number's higher than that number, you're automatically yes, right? So automatically yes number, automatically no number. Now these change over time or whatever, but they exist. In the middle is this range between you're not low enough to be permanently automatically no, and you're not high enough to be permanently yes. So you're in the middle, and that's what they call manual underwriting, and that's where a human will get involved and just start asking you tons of questions, trying to see if there's some sort of reason why your numbers were lower than what they would ideally like them to be, that they think then they'd feel comfortable that if they do loan you this money, that you're going to pay it back. So in general, that's the process. So when we talk about buying your first home at 27 or 20, or you have to be at least legally old enough to sign the contracts, but whatever age it is, then how do you do it? It's exactly what we talked about. You either have cash and then you spend the cash. So if it's your cash and you've earned it, you need to earn all that and save it. So the earning of it is just the first part. Then you have to hold on to it and not spend it on bills or anything else. So that's going to be part of that. And that's where you hear so much people talk about home buying, the planning. Well, yeah, you have to plan. The other part of it is you need to plan for your credit. Even if you're going to pay cash, I strongly recommend, as I said in the other shows, it's not going to hurt you to have high credit. And it really will make your life so much easier. So do this. Get your credit high. How do you do that in general? Assuming they have the right data and it's you and it's not some sort of horrible mistake or fraud or whatever, incompetence, then pay all your bills on time. And ideally, you want to have a variety of different types of debt. Short-term, unsecured, secured. Unsecured means there's nothing tangible they can get back, like a credit card. Secured would be like a car loan, where they loaned you money, you borrowed money, but it's secured by that property. And if you, worst case scenario, don't pay it, they'll just come get the property back, right? And they're looking for what they call a mix, right? So you're, some longer term things. There's also a whole bunch of rules about, they want to look and see how often you apply for new debt. The idea being, if you're constantly looking around for new debt and applying for new debt, you might be more high risk. So they're going to look at what they call, see how many inquiries there were, right? How many people were checking your credit, which you're supposed to have some control over, ideally. That you're the one that went and asked them to inquire and gave them your credit, your social security number, and authorized them to check your credit. They're going to look and see how old your debt is. Now, this will hurt you when you're young, because you only have a short amount. You can't enter into all these deals and start getting this good credit report until you're at least old enough to be an old adult. And in most instances in the States, we're 18. So between 18 and 27 or 18 and whatever, you've only had a few years. So I don't care if you started on your birthday, the first day you could, trying to get a credit rating, you're still going to be hindered by the fact that what they like to see is long-term debt, right? Like, you've been doing this for a long time and you've been managing a long time and paying everything on time. The problem is when you're 18, 19, 20, you haven't had that long. So they're computer models that sort of offset for that and are aware of it, but it's still something that when you're really young and going out to do stuff. I know when I was buying this first house, and whatever, 26, 27, and I went, to different lenders, I'm talking to people. Some of it was that people perceived, I think, that my age was, not necessarily helping me. And my argument would be, well, however many years I've been doing everything that I'm, been planning to do, my best, I'm still limited just because of my, I'm only so old. I can't sit here and tell you I have 25 years of great credit. I'm 27 years old. It's not happening because I couldn't even start until I was 18. So that's an issue. Now, of course, like I said, the computer models are aware of this and they're going to have some way to compensate, but it's still going to be a thing. So you need to be aware of it, right? The other thing is, you know, we talk about in our financial fierceness series, and I over and over again, I talk about the fact that, every single dollar or nickel or penny or, any whatever denomination or currency, everything you spend is money that you've stolen from yourself, that you just gave to that other business or to that other person. Why are you doing that? And you have to be really vigilant about that. We did a show where we talked about, we can't afford it. And I don't care if you make, $1 million a week or 10,000 US dollars a year or less. You and I, we can't buy everything because the formula is simple. You spend more than you bring in, you're broke. And I don't care if you're a multimillionaire or a billionaire or whatever, or never done anything but being, in dire, poverty, you're still broke. So you have to be aware and you have to ration yourself and not spend everything. So a lot of this credit information, like I said, we went over depth in another program. I know it was a multi-part program. I know we've talked about, the budgeting and not even that, but just a relationship with money, right? So it's not the getting of the money, it's the holding of it. That's important. And then we talked about the fact that age is an issue, that the younger you are, then the less percentage of people in your group, just your age peer group, are going to be property owners. We also mentioned that gender definitely is an issue. One of the reasons I wanted to buy my own home, of course, was because I could. And I've mentioned this in other programs. I am aware that, in many ways, I just have good timing. I don't have any control over it. But what I mean is, look on the show page, right? So go to episode 184 on CourtneyAnderson.com. You'll see a link there. 2 links. One is to an NPR piece, National Public Radio, and I'm reading from it. It says, it's hard to remember that just a few decades ago, it was difficult, if not impossible, for a woman alone to take out a mortgage. This was written in 2013, okay? And then it says, federal legislation changed that. Okay. And then it goes on to say, it says, and yet it's still surprising to learn how dominant single women have become in the housing market today. Their share is second only to married couples and twice that of single men, which reiterates the other data that we were discussing earlier. But underneath that is another piece referencing women. So we're just talking gender, females in general. This is U.S. specific at this time. And it's talking about how single women could not buy their own house. Not that long ago. Why? Because the law didn't allow it. And even if the law might not have permitted it exactly, banks and lenders didn't do it. No one thought it was a reasonable risk. So look in the show page and you'll see an article linked to the Chicago Tribune, right? So this is from a piece from 2004. So listen to this. Many single women couldn't buy their own homes 20 or 30 years ago because lenders saw them as credit risks. And then it says, Delois Baskin tried to purchase her first home in 1974 and was turned down for a loan. She asked why, and the chief executive officer of the bank told her that her status as a single woman kept her from the mortgage. It was unheard of that a single black woman would buy property, says Baskin, 57, who lives in a 5-bedroom home and sells real estate. You weren't expected to be doing those kinds of things. Okay, so they're interviewing somebody in 2004 who says, hey, in 1974, I went to go try to buy my home. And even though apparently, we'll assume that the credit and the income weren't the issues, the bank executive told her, you're a woman, a single woman. Single women, no, we don't lend to single women. Right? And then she also mentions that she, in addition to being a woman, female, and a single woman, so an unmarried woman, that she also is black, and that just wasn't happening. Like, it didn't happen, and there were, like I said, a lot of this, they were laws, and some of them were just practices. But women, in many instances, you didn't even have the ability to have your own credit card in your own name. If you had one, it was because your husband would put your name on there, but it was his because he's the man. And so the problem then, if you're single, you don't have a husband, then obviously that meant you couldn't get a credit card. And it also meant you're not buying a house, right? So what I'm saying is, by good fortune, I have no control over. If it was myself, I'm assuming, and my story was, oh, I'm 27 and it was 1974, and I'm going to try to buy my first house. I don't care what I had done for my planning and my credit and my savings and all this kind of stuff. It would have been totally useless, and who would have cared? Because my gender alone, not to mention my gender and ethnicity or color, I wouldn't have gotten it alone. It wouldn't have happened. So I would have had to take more time than to go just save up the money, the cash for all of it myself, because no one's going to lend it to me. Because I'm a female, and then I'm sure since that criteria was already the problem, then it doesn't really matter that my ethnicity at that point. But it was not happening. I'm aware of all of this. The fact that I had just sort of, the random good fortune in my personal perception to be alive when I had a chance. And so, because I knew that not anybody else, it wouldn't have mattered, again, what I had done if it was a different time period. It would have been the wrong time. And I just would be out of luck. I had a shot, and I knew this. By the time I'm 27, of course, because I'm already a lawyer and I have my own law firm, and I know, I've studied the laws, and I understand how things have changed, and I know I have a chance, and I'm going to go try to take it. Partially because I can. And my own opinion, which is, what it is, it's not worth anything, but just is that I think some of the things I read when I'm preparing the show, when I talk to people, why people ask me this question is because I can only speak as a female because that's been my identity and that's my experience, but I'm a person. And I don't dream or in gender. Does that mean, what I'm saying is I would assume, and I don't know, that if I was a male, I would dream similar dreams. I'd like to have this happen intellectually or academically or travel to this place or, and I don't sit in my own head, and think, well, I'd like to own my own home, but I'm a female, so tough. I won't. I don't dream in gender. I just do stuff because I know I'm myself, right? And I understand, how other people see me, and I understand, all the really interesting ways that people filter the world through gender and nationality and color and size and height and all this kind of stuff. I get it. But I don't see myself that way. Like, I'm inside of me, first of all. So I'm not seeing the outside of me most of the time because unless I'm looking in a mirror, I'm me. Like, I'm in my own body. So I'm just thinking about me as a person in the world, like I would assume most people do, And so being aware, though, that I do, I'm, one of the first generations to have a chance at 27 to go out and buy a house as a woman, as a single woman. I'm aware of this, and so I'm going to take it. Partially because I remember, and I feel so much gratitude to have a chance, and I also know that other people sacrificed to make huge changes so that I could have a chance. And I know other people when they were 27 or 20 or 18 or whatever age or 77 wanted this and couldn't do it, and that hurts and it motivates me in a way though too, right? I can, so I'm going to take my shot. I have it. And again, so those types of things I think are helpful. One of the things I want to mention when we're talking about this, there's so many layers to it. There's age, there's gender. From my personal experience, well, all of us are going to have national origin. We're all going to have whatever perception of ethnicity and all religion. So we're all on the same boat, but they're different perceptions based on these different things, right? So like I said, if I was a male, I would assume in many ways, I think similar in terms of my dreams and goals and expectations and stuff. But I wouldn't be having this extra issue of gender perception and stereotype impacting my ability to go out and make a real estate deal, right? And it's the same thing with other issues. One of the things that I thought was interesting is, so when I'm looking around, and you'll see in the show notes, here's a quote in the show notes out of Canada. It says, in Canada, 25% of buyers are single women. Only 10% of buyers are single men. Now, this is fascinating. This is a totally different country, although same as the States, North America. So Canada, 25% of buyers, single women. Only 10% single men. Wow. But I put the link there. In Australia, 2013 article in Australia, recent Australian Bureau of Statistics figures also show that across the age groups, more women than men own their own home. That Australian article is really interesting. So whether you are an Aussie or you just want curious, look and sort of see the dynamic. So here we have, now we're out. We're not in North America at all, right? We're in a totally different part of the world, a totally different continent. Okay. What I'm trying to say is make the point, and that this isn't a thing for a certain national origin. It's not a thing for a certain part of the planet. What I'm saying is, my personal opinion is that we're humans, and so people think and dream, and that whether you're Canadian or Australian or American or Brazilian or whatever, then if you have a shot, you're going to take it. A shot at what? A shot at your own life, your own dreams. So I thought those were really interesting. I did want to mention, as because as I said, you get all these layers in life, right? So we're all talking about surpassing our goals, and then we can talk about credit score, we can talk about finance and saving, we can talk about financial independence, and that's stripped of all this other sort of individual filter that the world is potentially going to add to your process, right? So it wouldn't matter if you were, a 6-year-old male or, a 27-year-old female. We're talking about how to buy a house. It's how to buy a house. The challenge, though, is that your age will be perceived and potentially viewed differently, right? There are these filters. So people might think, oh, they're so young, they don't know what they're doing, or they're risky. Young people are risky, or blah, 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 this. So that's one challenge. I mean, it is. They're going to find out your age because it's part of the background information they're going to find out if you're going to borrow money. And they're going to identify you. So you're going to need some sort of ID. So that'll be a thing. And if you talk to people in real life in person, they're also going to just see you. And then they're going to have all their own perceptions about age and all of this, or whatever. And sometimes people talk to you literally like they're talking to their own, grandkid. I know when I went to buy my first house, I had discussions with people that I ended up not working with to be my title company or my lender, who talked to me, the phrase, they talked down to me. They were condescending. They literally talked to me like, you would talk to a little kid and scold a child. I get it. I may have been the age of their children or grandchildren or whatever. That's not the point. The point is I was there as a potential customer. Treat me as an adult. The rules said when I hit 18, I'm old enough to do certain things like buy a house. I can sign contracts. I met I don't care if I was 18 and my birthday, was that day. I met the rule. So then now you have to treat me as a customer. That's how I see it. I do understand, though, that all these other things, that people filter it. So it's not that the bank or the institution itself, but the people who work there are the ones who are filtering stuff, and it does impact how they talk to you, how they relate to you, and how they do deals with you. So just like age does, gender does too, right? So I read the anecdote where someone said, "Hey, I was told directly, by the executive at the bank in 1974, no, we don't do single women loans. It's not happening." Okay. So gender is an issue. We also know that all the other stuff. So I'm sure if we had an ability issue, or maybe we were in a wheelchair, I'm sure that people would have perceptions. If we, were visually impaired, I'm sure people would have perceptions. If we, whatever, I'm sure there's a lot of it. So also color, or the complexion of us is an issue. Perceived, I'm sure, religion or tribal affiliation in many parts of the world. Perceived national origin. So maybe if we speak with maybe what people perceive as an accent or a dialect, that would be a thing. So for me, I'm me. So that's why I can speak to at the age I was when I did this, and the female gender that I was and am, and my complexion and / ethnicity as a black person. Then I know that all that is, and I'm thrilled with it. I mean, I'm me, right? But I also know that impacts some of the stuff that people said to me, because I had conversations when all this went down with buying the first house. I worked for, like I said, I was behind my own time schedule. I was late in my own calendar of buying my first house. And it was really important to me because there's so many things I waited on. Now it sounds goofy, but it's my life. I can do what I want, and not everything I want, but in general. One of the things I really dreamed of was having a pet dog. And I hadn't had one ever since I had been out, on my own as an adult, whatever, because I felt like I wanted to have a place with a little yard. I wanted to have some, access to outdoor space, garden, yard, something, or at least a place to walk the animal or something. I didn't want to be in a little tiny apartment or flat with no space, and then have an animal, and then it's really difficult to get them outside. Maybe there's several flights or whatever. Now, many people do this, and it works out wonderfully, but they planned for it. I just had my thing where I was like, I want to get my own place. I also didn't want to have to deal with landlords giving me all this hassle and paying all these extra fees and everything for me to bring a pet in. So I just felt like, you know what, I'll wait. And so honestly, I'd been waiting. I finished high school when I was 17 years old, and now it's 10 years later. That's why I said I was so late on this. And I'm finally buying my house. And all this time I've been wanting my pet. I've been wanting a dog. And I hadn't had one, right? Because I'm waiting. I planned on this. So I got my place, and then I don't have to deal with the landlord and the hassle of all this stuff. Now, of course, I also realized I didn't need to buy into, a cooperative, or some sort of condominium where there's already going to be a restriction on pets. So I knew I needed to find a place without that. So that's what I did. So in my mind, I've been waiting at least 10 years, right? Since I was, out of high school, and then I turned 18, whatever, after I finished high school, and I've been on my own all this time, living alone and supporting myself and everything. So like I was planning, right? So I was super excited because, I did exactly what I'm telling you. Of course I can't be embarrassed because I'm putting it out for the world, but I do think I've had enough speeches and discussions over the years that people find some of this helpful, and people ask me, so I'm trying to answer. So that part of it was I had a vision. I had a vision in my mind, like it was going to be my place, and yeah, I was going to fix it up the way I wanted to. As soon as I got my place, I was going to get my dog. And I'm not kidding. I mean, I must have gone and adopted my dog. This was my beautiful, he was a miniature Dachshund. His name was Marley. He's passed away now. But I adopted him like days after I closed. Closing, where you finally go. Like after all this time, especially if you borrow money, then there's like this incredibly time-consuming process where, the people who are loaning you money are doing due diligence. Ideally, it's what they're supposed to do. And so they're all this investigation of you and what did you pay, and they're monitoring all along. Like, what are you spending money on right now, right? Because you can spend money on something while you're waiting to go to closing, and they can turn away and then say, we're not going to loan you the money anymore. We're going to change our mind because you went out and blew a whole bunch of money in your bank account on, whatever. They don't. There's all these things we talk about in these programs. You're buying a house, don't spend anything. I know you're thinking, oh, I'm going to need to get maybe new furniture or whatever. No, you're going to wait until after you close, because until you close and they fund that loan, funding is where literally now it's all technology, but where the button is pushed, where the money was transferred from the lender and the recipient entity is like, yes, we've received it, and now it's funded. Now, okay, right? They've been paid. Like, now go get your furniture. Now go spend money. And for me, get my dog. And he's a wonderful, I have to say, wonderful dog. He's beautiful. I miss him very much to this day because that was my first pet, and he was with me for the next almost 13 years. So anyway, he passed away from old age. So here we go. I have my dream. I'm gonna have my little house. Relatively speaking, size is relative. Some people in some parts of the world would see the first house I bought. And here's the thing: I still own this house as of the time I'm making this program. It's been over 15 years ago. I still own this house. I don't live in it anymore. I have it as an investment property, but I still own it. And for many other reasons we'll talk about and have talked about in other programs. We talk about being a real estate investor, being a landlord. So I still own it. And I had some things that were important to me. And part of this is where in the world I was living. So I really wanted to have a brick home built, brick, all-sided brick. I did that. Wanted this yard for my dog. At that time it was imaginary. And I did. All of it happened. And like I said, I talked to people, during this process where I was trying to find the right lender and find the right home builder and find the right property and all this kind of stuff for people. Obviously, I found some people who were wonderful because I bought the house and I still own it all these, 15 years plus years later, right? So it's a win-win. But there are people in that process where people were not open to doing business with me, and I don't mind if my credit's not what it needs to be, or my down payment wasn't what it needed to be. Then that's something I can fix, right? I can't fix it if somebody's perception is my age, or perception is my gender, or perception is as a single person, I'm not married, if perception as my color, or perception of whatever, then I'm doomed because I can't change that. You know what I mean? Obviously, so, and I'm offended, and it's also in most instances illegal. I did want to mention, when you go to the show page and we talk about this, so can you buy your first home if you haven't? Yeah, of course. In the other program we talk about how to buy it, I tell you, if you get your credit together and or your finances, then they want to loan you money. Who's they? The entity that makes a living loaning money, right? That's what they do, is loan money. They don't want to tell anybody no, because that's what they want to do, is say yes, let you're the customer, and you give them interest. That's entirely what they do. So so excluding the rare person who works at some place like this, who has some, really, really destructive, prejudice or stereotype or something is out there turning away customers, which does happen. Absent that, the entity itself and the people who own the entity, whether it's privately held or held by shareholders, if they don't make any loans, they're going to go out of business. They want to make loans. So when you understand that, then there's nothing at all that's scary or weird about any of this, because you get it. You find somebody who's in business seriously, so they're not caught up in some sort of weird thing where they're going to ruin their business by not getting customers, and focusing on your age or your gender or your color or your size or any of that kind of stuff, which is useless. But somebody wants to, do business. So when you do that, then it's your responsibility all along to understand exactly what you're going to be up against. That even if somebody wants to do business, there are going to be a lot of questions if you're young. The more that you deviate from the sort of average, then the more people are going to ask questions. And we talked about that if you're in your 20s, then you're not the average, because the average is going to be older than you. If you're a single woman, you're not the average. Now, your numbers are higher than a single man, but you're still not the average. So the more you deviate from the average, the more they're going to ask questions. You knew this before you got ready to say you want to buy your house. I was never frustrated or stressed out or anything, except for when people said and did things that were blatantly illegal. I know they're illegal because I'm a lawyer, A. And B, even if I wasn't, I still would have recognized that you can't make a decision based on looking at me without running my credit and telling me you're not going to loan me money. Really? So I was mad about stuff like that. And then it raised these issues where, part of me is like, I need to go, take legal action against these places to stop them from going out there and doing this to other people. The other part of it was, though, I said, well, I have limited time and I need to get my own, purchase. I need to get to, to the closing and funding of the loan. So it's my house. Excluding, of course, going on and paying back the money I borrowed and paying the taxes on it and being aware that, adverse possession exists and being aware that eminent domain exists. Okay, I get it. But it's more my house than it was when I was renting my apartment before. So, okay. So, in theory, if I had more time and or resources, money and staff, I would have, ideally in my fantasy life, I would have liked to have taken legal action against every single, entity that I dealt with who was engaging in illegal activity. I didn't have the ability to do so. I didn't have the time and the money and the resources because I'm still trying to make a living and get all this done to get my house. I got all that done, but I'm still mad to this day that there are people out there doing illegal things. And that's why when you listen to the programs we do and you come to the speeches and you hear me, I get all, passionate because, yeah, it's illegal. The fact that it's illegal isn't the shock. Humans are humans, but it must stop. Somebody must hold them accountable. And I get mad because I'll feel like I have an extra responsibility. I am a lawyer and I'm trying to do all I can. I'm also trying to not wait till it gets to that point. If you educate people often and they realize it's illegal and that they'll stop doing it, and we won't even have to get to this thing about enforcement of, the punishment, because they'll just not do the bad thing because they realize it's a bad thing. A lot of it's education. I did some training a couple years ago for a client who hired me to teach real estate laws and practices to people who wanted to get the real estate license, right? So potential new realtors. They were going through this class to learn what they needed to pass a test to be able to become a licensed realtor. So I was teaching them a lot of this content, and we did a whole section on this, because look in the show notes, okay, and you'll see a couple of things I just want to draw your attention to. So we've been talking at this, the issue of buying your first home as a woman. It's not just a U.S. thing. It's a global issue that it's an exciting thing. We talk about the reality of, all of us deal with all these filters that people, layer all this stuff on top of us, what we look like and what we sound like and all this kind of stuff. All right, so here in the show notes, I have two quotes from this organization that purports to do research in these areas of wealth and equity and things of that nature, and the link is in there, right, to the original documents. Okay, so there's a couple of statistics I'm going to read really quick. African American borrowers were 3.8 times, and Latino borrowers 3.6 times more likely to receive high-cost loans. The numbers are most shocking for high-income people. A high-income African American or black person was almost twice as likely as a low-income white borrower or European American, depending on your whatever name framework you use, to have a subprime loan They are less likely to receive information about the full range of housing choices and are pushed into segregated neighborhoods, less likely to have quality schools or rising home values. Asian Americans also have been targeted for subprime loans. Subprime loans grew 181% for Asian borrowers between 2004 and 2005. 6.5 billion in US dollars in loans are now at risk of foreclosure in Asian American and Pacific Islander communities. And there's other research for First Nation, Native Americans, and other communities. Here's the point. The point is this. Look, it's a business deal. If it was stripped away and you just saw nothing but credit score and you didn't know gender and you didn't necessarily have a way to quickly see age and you didn't even know their national origin or color or any of that kind of stuff, it would diminish a lot of this. But you do see it. And what happens is somebody's going to go buy their first house, and if you're not a real estate professional, then you get a realtor often in the US. And so before the internet technology, because I bought my house before the internet technology we have, you wouldn't even know what houses were for sale, really, unless you hired a realtor who had access to these databases and then would be able to drive you around and show you stuff. Now, there's signage everywhere, and more importantly, most of this is opened up or online. Anybody can go and see what houses are for sale on all types of different websites. So it's really different. But back then, if you're dependent on somebody else showing you what's for sale, especially if you're not from that area and you don't know, then what I was teaching in this real estate training course was you can't do things as a realtor like think, oh, well, this person looks like they're a Pacific Islander. I think there's that one part of town where many people who look like them live. I'll drive them over there. And in many parts of this U.S., there'll be parts of towns where literally people will refer to stuff like they'll say, oh, that's Chinatown. And I think, meaning, oh, that's where many Asian American businesses are located or where many Asian American families live. That is illegal. And this is one of the things when I did the real estate education programs for the people getting the real estate license, it was interesting because people got really upset about it. And they were like, well, I don't understand. I'm trying to help people. They want to buy a house, and I'm, the realtor, and I want them to buy a house too because I only get paid and get a commission whenever they buy something. But I'm just trying to help them find somewhere that they'll like, that they'll fit in and they'll be happy and stuff. So if I know that that's where most of the people who, look like them, that's where most of the Hispanic people live, or people, the black people live, or the Native American people live, or whatever, I'm trying to help them. Okay. We said that the really important part is education. The thing that's not right about that is what I look like does not define me. And for you to presume how much money I want to spend, what kind of school that I want my kids to be close to, what type of location to my job, all this because you think that someone that you think looks sort of maybe like you think some of what I look like. I mean, it's so offensive. It's also, unfortunately, it's illegal. And they had processes in the states called redlining, for which some would say they still have, where it was intentional. These things weren't accidental. It was set up. Like literally, lenders and local governments and entities would set up and say, look, that's where those people who look like that's the only place we'll let them live. That's how it became their neighborhood in many instances. So it wasn't like some sort of, magically beautiful thing where people just sort of randomly got together and were like, you know what, we sort of look like we might have similar ancestry in some ways. Let's just pick this neighborhood because it's super awesome. No, it's because they were told they had to live there. In many instances, it happened to be maybe a part of the town near, a waste or, the dump, or there were potential, risks in the water supply, or they were near, a toxic spill or something. I mean, it's not like, again, like it started in some sort of beautiful, wonderful thing. And then now you're the realtor trying to help. I understand that if you haven't talked about this or thought about this, it didn't seem to you like it was anything wrong. You really kind of thought, based on stereotypes, you think you're helping, but you're not. And you're violating the law. Like no. So like I said, when we've educated and taught on this, I've explained to people why the individual has a right to take their money and is with their money and their credit to get the best deal in terms of interest rates and to go out and buy what they want. Whether it's because they want to be able to have a dog in a certain type of space, if they want to be able to, have a horse, if they want to be able to, they love 2-story or 3-story, they want to be in a high rise, they want to be, in a 1-story on the ground, if they want a huge acreage with 8 acres, 10 acres, if they want, a little teeny lot because they don't want to be outside dealing with it, all of that is up to them. And I don't care what their gender is. The assumption, well, it's a male would want to, live in this type of place. A female would want to live in this place. A person who's that color would want this and all this. No. It's offensive at every level because it takes away the ability for the person to be an individual, and you're just sort of telling them what they should think, and that erases and diminishes them as a person. I have the right to want a dog and a certain type of space based on just me, Courtney, not because I'm a woman, not because of my age, not because of all this other stuff, but it's real. And so if you don't think it's real all around the world that people have filters, then you're not being realistic. You have them too, and so do I. Part of why we do these programs to talk about this is so we're aware of our own stereotypes and the way that we're taking in information that's inaccurate. That's why we talk about data as our friend. You and I and everyone else has the right, when we have an opportunity, to express ourselves. And if I express myself by buying a property that fits my needs and my interests and my goals, that's what the whole thing was about me. I bought it. So we want to be aware of that. Okay? And then there's just a statistic from that same resource from one of their publications. It was talking about a women wealth report, if this is from focusing on the U.S. again, it says while 57% of single white women own homes, only 33% of single black women and only 28%, I had the only, and 28% of single Hispanic women are homeowners. So we can see that even within these numbers of women are increasing, that within the subsection of different types of women. I'm sure, by age, obviously, which we've been talking about, by ethnicity, by national origin. I'm sure by, if we want to get the data, I'm sure we could slice and dice it, by religion, by disability level, how many people who are, deaf, how many people who are visually impaired, and we can break this out into lots of different factors. Why is it worth it? Because data is our friend. And there may be an issue. It may be that when you, for some reason, which we don't know yet, that maybe 33% of single black women are the only group that wants to own a home. Maybe the other black women, for some reason, say we don't want to do this. Maybe only 28% of Hispanic single women want to be homeowners. And maybe there's a reason why when you go same gender women, but you look to one of our broader, these labels are all horrible, but whatever. White women or European descent women, they'll 57%. It may be that maybe there's something different. My personal opinion is no, I doubt it. I think what it is a combination of all these other things we've talked about. The shared history for all women where they weren't even able to get a loan at all, period, done. I don't care what your ethnicity was or national origin, it's not happening. Then within that issue, then you have all these other issues that impact individuals in different ways, right? Age and national origin, religion, and all this. So and most of the things that happen today aren't accidental. Most of them were initially designed. Right? It wasn't an accident that women weren't allowed to have their own credit cards and buy houses. It was designed. Now, why it was designed and getting it changed is an interesting discussion, but it wasn't accidental. That's why it was so uniform. And I think you can make an argument that there are other reasons why women from different ethnic backgrounds are going to have different experiences in terms of the numbers. That doesn't necessarily, in my mind, equate that they don't want it as much. I would argue that probably, I said gender, I don't dream in gender. I don't dream in any of this stuff. I would suspect that people are people. And some people are going to think, yeah, I wanted to buy a house when I was, a little kid. Other people think I'll be, I want to die and never own property. It's a hassle. I don't want to care about these taxes. It's not anything I'm into. Everybody's different. But we need to be allowed to define ourselves and define our own lives. And that's what, in my mind, that's what all this is about. If you're interested, you want to own your home, own it. We can talk about how you can address some of the issues that a lender would look at. We can talk about buying the right property in terms of investment. I mentioned this first house I bought at 27. I still have it. Over 15 years later, of course I do, because I wasn't buying it just temporarily. I was buying it long term for lots of different reasons, either for me to live in or to buy it and put it into my portfolio that I'd already been planning that I was going to be a landlord, even though when I didn't have any property. I had a plan. I always have a plan, right? So we can talk about how making good investments for your return on if it's going to be a rental house eventually or whatever. We can talk about all of these things, and we do. That's what we're here for. But I have to mention that we're going to face slightly different filters, and we're going to have to be prepared for it. I don't mean prepare for it in a way where I'm not going to even bother because of my age or my ethnicity or whatever. That's ridiculous in my personal opinion. You're a human, and if you have a chance, if the system is changed enough to allow you a potential opportunity, take it. Other people just as intelligent and more intelligent than you and I couldn't do this because I don't care what they wanted and how hard they worked. The rule was just no. You're a woman, never, not happening, no. And that was changed and there was a chance for a woman to do something, then I think every woman should ask herself what they want and then go do that thing. And if they never want to buy property, don't do it. If you want to buy property, do it. That's the thing about being an individual. Self-determination to some very small extent. So how did I do it? I just told you. I researched and planned for 10 years. I understood as much as I could. I had an advantage, of course, being going to law school and becoming a licensed attorney and opening my own law firm. All that happened before I bought the house. So sure, and I also had studied business, and I hadn't finished my business degree, but I'd started it at this point, and I'd already taught at the University of Texas in their business schools, business law. So yeah, I have an advantage in terms of knowledge. I don't have an advantage in anything else. So I didn't have anybody give me any money. I didn't have anybody go with me to pick out a house or help me or whatever. I just, I learned a lot of this on my own because I had to do it. And like I said, I found wonderful professionals who obviously it worked, right? I got the loan, I bought the house, I've had the house 15 years, win-win. But there were also people I encountered who were doing all these illegal things they're not supposed to do. And I would argue, to their detriment. But also, yeah, so they lost the business. That's part of it. That makes me feel a little bit better. But the thing is, I suspect unless somebody educates them, which is hopefully what part of what we're doing, or, hold them accountable for the illegal action, they went out and did it to somebody else and denied somebody else an opportunity. I usually, when we talk about it in these programs, especially in this series, if I have a goal that I've already sat down and planned and been working and researching everything, my goal is not, dependent on what anybody else says or does. It's me, and I've already been working on it. So when somebody tells me no, they're not going to loan me money, I'm mad and I'm upset or whatever, but I'm not going to stop. That to me, it's like that's just somebody who's either doing something illegal or they're the wrong person. I'll just keep going because the goal was to buy the house. That's what I was doing, and that's what I did. And I would never, ever, ever for 1 millisecond thought I wasn't going to do it. I don't care what somebody says to me because I was focused on my mind about what are the rules, what does the law say, what are the requirements, and I was meeting and exceeding those, and then I'm going to make it happen. So when I run into somebody who says, no, it's not happening, I'm mad, and I'm frustrated, but it doesn't impact whether or not I'm buying my house. I am buying the house. The decision was made. So they're not going to stop me. The thing that I worry about, and one of the reasons we do this series, is that I've experienced having enough interaction with people over the years that there are other people who aren't that assertive. And when they set everything up and they plan and they go to a realtor, they go to a mortgage broker, they go to a lender, bank, or credit union, and somebody, does something that's either inappropriate, not helpful, poor customer service, or blatantly illegal, and then they'll quit. And they'll say, well, I did try. I went over there and they told me no. The bank people told me no and they were mean to me. And then you quit. My point is, I'm upset that they were mean to you. I'm upset, certainly, if they did something illegal. I'm just upset even if it wasn't illegal, but they just had poor customer service, right? They just ignored you. They didn't help answer your questions, whatever. I'm mad about that, and that's why we try to talk about business practices and talk about making sure people understand what the laws say. But more than that, I'm really the most upset that you're denying yourself an opportunity at your life because you ran into some, individual who may be illegal, activity based, or may just be an idiot, and you let that stop you from all the wonderful things in your life. We can't stop every time somebody else does something illegal or somebody else is an idiot. I mean, then nobody would do anything. For all you know, the person at the bank who's rude to you, maybe they're jealous, maybe they don't have a house, or maybe they wish they had a house when they were 27. I don't know. I mean, some of this sounds like, yeah, right, they were jealous, but you know what? Sometimes it really is stuff like that. I don't know. The bottom line is, I really don't care. I don't care why they did the thing that wasn't helpful or illegal. I just care that they did it, and now they're off my list of potential business partners. I'm going to find the person that we're going to get this thing done, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. And so in my mind, it's sort of like a tunnel vision. When you're on focus, you're on task, and you know what you're doing. So it's annoying when these things kind of pop up, or somebody says or does something illegal, or just maybe idiotic, or has poor customer service. But it's not going to impact me. I have stuff to do. So I really encourage you to take that kind of ownership of this. This is your life. You're not alone. We talked about globally, there's a trend, female increasing in many countries, more in single females than single men. So that shows you're not alone. And I don't even care if you were alone. I'd still say do it if you want to. But I think it also helps, again, data is our friend, to give us perspective that's not unusual or something about you necessarily, but why not you? You have a chance. Take it. And again, look at all the requirements in terms of the policies, the process, the lending requirements, and plan ahead and take care of that. And then when you get out there in real life, of course you're going to interact with people. Even if you were a man and you didn't have any of these gender filters or these other issues, and you were whatever age, and you didn't have that filter, you're still gonna everybody has a chance. We just run into goofy people or people who are incompetent or whatever. So that could happen to anybody, and it's still not going to deter us. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. That's them. That's their problem. We have a task. And the task is to, if you're interested in planning on buying your home, then you're going to buy the home. It's done. The deciding is the hard part in my mind. Once you make the decision, the easy part is the execution, because you know what's going to happen at the end. And it sounds as hokey as all the rest of the stupid my individual stupid little anecdotes, but the rush I get when I go to a closing, and I've now been to several because I've bought several homes and everything. When you go to a closing and yeah, we finished, and it's funded, because I always want to get confirmation, whether it's my own funds or money I borrowed, and then they're here's your keys, yeah, because it's mine. I love that. It's a rush. And it really is emotional. It's emotional. I don't care if it's again, it doesn't matter what the size of the condo, if it's a condo, if it's a freestanding, I don't care what it is, it's yours. And you know what? Congratulations. And then decorate it, however, aware of what the covenants are, whatever the HOA rules are. But you knew that before you bought it, but make it yours. And you know what? Celebrate it. Because you did this. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And I'm very, very proud of you for being part of the program today. Please send me any communication. Tell me what happens. Tell me how your closing went. Tell me how it was to get your keys. Tell me that feeling. And then again, like I said, we're going to continue to add more programs and talk about people who move into or who are in real estate investing, being a landlord, and building those portfolios and continuing to move forward. But yes, 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 yes. Woo! I'm so excited. So again, thank you for being part of the program. Stay in touch and let me know. Maybe we'll set up something in the future where people can share pictures of their properties, whether it's the decoration inside or anything you want to let the world know. Yes, 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 you did. Oh, yes, you did. And I'm very proud of you for just, again, being part of the program and opening up your mind to all of the possibilities and all the things that you are potentially going to decide that you're absolutely going to commit to. Thank you.